If you have endometriosis, heavy and painful periods, you're exhausted and bloated, and you've been told that IVF is your only option, this episode is for you. I'm Dr. Jane Levesque, and this is the Natural Fertility with Dr. Jane podcast, where we help couples uncover the real reasons behind their fertility struggles. Today, I want to walk you through one of my patients' story who had endometriosis. She struggled to conceive for over 2 years. She had laparoscopic surgery that did nothing for her. And then she was told that IVF was her only option. And here's how we challenged that. We found what everyone else missed. We supported her through another surgery, and we supported her recovery. And then she went on to conceive naturally. I'm going to share that full story with you. And here's the big idea. Endometriosis is one of the leading causes of infertility. And surgery alone is rarely enough because we need to address the environment that caused the endo to be there and to spread. Now, most of you who have endometriosis, or maybe you strongly suspect it because you have heavy periods or you have light periods, but there's still a lot of pain and discomfort. You have painful bowel movements. Maybe you have pain during sex. You have this bloating that's constant, also known as endo belly, fatigue, brain fog, mood swings. You may have been told that surgery is the only option and that will just fix everything. So then you go through the surgery, but your symptoms or your fertility haven't really changed. Something is being missed. And I'm going to show you how most people are approaching it and why this actually fails. So what most people think is if I just find the right surgeon and remove the tissue, everything will go back to normal. The reason that you think that is because your doctor is telling you that. And I want to challenge that belief because that's not what I'm seeing in real life and in practice. And some of you might be thinking, well, I'm already eating clean and I am seeing a functional doctor or a naturopath. If I'm not pregnant, then it must mean that, IVF is the only option or that my body is broken. And a lot of women don't want to admit that, but they do deep down feel that their body is broken and something is different with it. And that's what breaks my heart. And that's why I'm here. Because here's why thinking like that or approaching endo just from a surgery standpoint actually fails us as women. If we treat endo like a purely mechanical problem, we're completely ignoring the fact that, gut health, detox, inflammation, and even the male partner are the things that we need to address in order to get rid of the root cause of the endometriosis. And then if you are working with a naturopath or a functional doctor that doesn't specialize in fertility, they likely will miss the nuances that are very specific to fertility. So improving your health will absolutely improve your fertility, but fertility has so many different nuances around not just the surgery, but the different procedures that are involved, and then the different systems that are involved, from your thyroid to your immune system, to blood sugars, to gut, to vaginal microbiome, that when you have a generalist from a functional medicine perspective or a naturopath perspective, they don't tend to look at all the intricacies and how everything is connected, let alone understanding what happens on the conventional side from the different procedures that you might need in order to help you get to the next step in your fertility journey. So I find that just seeing a general practitioner isn't enough, especially for a chronic fertility issue like endometriosis. So here's what I want to propose, that endometriosis is not just a reproductive issue. It is a full body inflammatory and immune system condition. So we have to address the environment. We have to look at the gut. We have to look at your nervous system. We have to look at your immune system. And we have to look at your partner. This is probably the biggest blind spot I see in the fertility space, where we just do not treat the partner because you're the one that has endo. He's fine. And I'm going to share an example with you today when he was fine, but he was carrying so many different infections that was causing her to stay sick while he was not really feeling any of it. I'm going to go on a quick side tangent why this happens. This happens because a woman with endo is highly inflamed and she is very sensitive. Her immune system is very sensitive. So she is going to pick up on things around her environment that most people won't, let alone men. And I say this because most men are just not in tune with their bodies in the same way like women are, but an endo woman, I think, is highly sensitive to her environment. This is what I'm seeing in practice with my endo women. So even though the men is fine, in the case that I'll share today with you, he had so many different infections going on that she simply cannot, and they were the same ones as hers. And obviously now we can't tell who started it, but she just couldn't clear it in her body until he also cleared his. I think that, surgery is such an important part and can be absolutely needed in your fertility journey. But without addressing the gut and the detox and the hormones and the toxins and your partner, that same environment that grew the lesions is still there, and it's just going to continue to regrow. And typically worse, because now you have the surgery and the scar tissue formation, and that can cause a lot of issues for women as well. I find that in my practice, for our women, the real unlock is when we have a really great surgeon, but then we also treat endometriosis with this full body root cause approach, and we get the partner involved. It's not and or we do this. We have to do all of these pieces for endometriosis because it is such a chronic condition and so highly inflammatory and so highly dependent on the environment. So surgery will remove the tissue, but I often use the analogy of the garden. If you have a weed and you just cut it without getting the roots, that weed is just going to keep coming back. So we want to make sure we actually pull the roots out. And for my gardeners out there, you also want to make sure you optimize the soil. So you have to rehydrate the soil, you have to put certain nutrients in it, and you have to plant other seeds so other things can grow and take those nutrients instead of the weeds. So we need to change the environment. Let's go into this case. So Amanda was 38 years old when we met. She has endometriosis. She had heavy periods. She was very bloated and tired, moody. She had a very sluggish digestion, and she had a surgery that basically did nothing for her. She had very minimal relief and then was just told she needs IVF. They've been struggling to conceive for over 2 years. So here's what we found together. Now, we always assess both partners, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why in just 1 minute. So for her, she had a lot of issues with her gut. She had a leaky gut. She had significant candida overgrowth. By the time I see candida in the gut, I'm thinking that this is a very systemic candida infection. Her liver markers were all off. Her inflammation markers were really high. Her nutrients were really, really low. So she had vitamin D that was low. Her iron was low and depleted because of the heavy periods. She had very low amino acids. Her copper and zinc ratio was off. Free copper was very high, which is actually a sign of inflammation. Her zinc and magnesium and molybdenum were all low. It's like she was very, very depleted. And then her hormones, including blood sugars, were very dysregulated. Her HbA1c was at 5.8, and I ideally wanted below 5. So she essentially was pre-diabetic, even though she did not have a lot of extra weight. She was very surprised by that, to be honest. And then we also did a toxic load panel, and she just had so many toxins in her body. Her system was just very, very overwhelmed, very depleted, and very, very inflamed. So when I look at someone like that, I don't think that she needs to be trying to conceive. We need to do some prep work and repair and just optimize, like bring the body up so she doesn't feel so exhausted, because pregnancy is the hardest thing that you will ever do. And there is no way, like I told her, I'm like, could you gain 30 pounds right now and then push this baby out and breastfeed? And she's like, no, I can't imagine doing that. So she really wanted to be pregnant, but how fatigued and exhausted and fragile and weak she felt, there was no way. She was like, no, I can't gain the weight and I can't carry the baby. Like, I can't see myself doing that. So we really anchored into who does she need to become in order to be the mother, not just to get pregnant and to be able to do all those things that are going to be required of her when she's pregnant. Then when we tested him, he had even more candida than her. So he had really high levels of candida. He had a leaky gut. He had eczema that he just got used to living with. So to him, it was like, oh, it's whatever. I just put cream on it. And he was just putting steroid cream on it, which obviously doesn't address the root cause of why the eczema is there in the first place. He had also some low nutrient levels. He just wasn't as low as her. And then he also had really dysregulated blood sugar, the same. They were at 5.8. So when I'll test partners, there's partners who are very complementary, and then there's partners who are very opposing. They were very complementary, meaning like their labs looked very similar with only a few kind of differences. And that's a perfect example of how when we live together, when we share the environment, like our microbiome mimics that. And typically the nutrient levels, for example, they were low on the same nutrients because they're eating the same foods. They might be eating at different times or different volumes or slightly, variable, but that's one of the reasons why addressing the partner is so important, is because you are sharing the environment. So this is the first time they were assessed together. And this is the first time they had a real plan. So we weren't just following advice on the internet now. They already had a clean lifestyle. They already took handfuls of supplements that were recommended by their other functional doctors. But now this was data. They also actually both got Aura rings. They didn't get them right off the bat. They got them probably about 6 months in. But it was super helpful to see that data, especially for the men that say they're fine, because I can then dig into, show me the sleep quality, show me how many times you're waking up, what's your stress levels throughout the day, what's your HRV, what's your heart rate, and then I know what the optimal numbers I'm looking for, and then I can really help guide my male partners with data instead of like, oh, okay, good, you're sleeping well, and I'm essentially just trusting and believing that they are sleeping well. We had this whole plan. They were, started to feel better almost immediately in terms of her digestion and her mood and her energy. His eczema went away. Her eczema on her hand started to go away. And then after 5 months of working together, she conceived naturally. And this baby taught us a lot. Obviously, they were really excited, but this is the first time she got a positive pregnancy test in like 2.5 years. If that has happened to you, first of all, you know that that's a magical moment. If it's never happened to you, that's something literally that you wait for to happen. And she just couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that her body could do it. Unfortunately, she miscarried at 7 weeks. But they did decide to do chromosomal testing because she wanted to see if there was any issues, and there wasn't. So her intuition said that there's something still not right, and she probably needs another surgery. And truthfully, we were thinking about doing another surgery, but then she just got pregnant naturally, and we're like, okay, let's see if this pregnancy sticks. So once she miscarried, she was like, I think I need that other surgery. We, of course, took the time to grieve the pregnancy and all the lessons that she learned, and this baby really showed her that getting pregnant naturally is a possibility for her. I saw that as a clinician in her shift. She went from, we just want to try everything that we can, and then if we need IVF, we're open to it, to like, no, I can do this. My body can do it, and I'm going to do it. So she had this like new fire in her soul and in her eyes, if you will. So she found a better OB. She found a better endosurgeon. We already did all this beautiful prep work where we decreased the inflammation. We were getting rid of, the candida and inflammation, and her nutrients were so much better now. We went into surgery, and then post-surgery, she recovered really, really fast. So she felt stronger within 2 weeks than months after the first surgery. And she was shocked. She just couldn't believe how resilient her system was. And I love those examples because it's very rewarding. Like sometimes when we're waiting for the baby, it's so rewarding to go through these experiences and to be like, oh, I am so much more resilient. I do have so much more energy. And a lot of my couples, when, I'll interview them on the podcast, if they decide to come on, they'll have to go back to their initial consultation form that they filled out with me. And typically it's like, 1 to 2 years after, because however long it takes us 9 to 12 months to conceive, and then I don't invite them on the interview until second or third trimester. So it's been a really long time. They have to go back to that initial consultation form and be like, what were we struggling with again? And I love that because they literally don't remember the things that they were struggling with. Like her partner doesn't remember that he had eczema. He doesn't remember that he had brain fog or that his digestion was off, because at that time, that was the thing that was bothering him the most. And now that's not a problem at all. So I think that's really cool. And for her, it was just such a big reward to recover this quickly after surgery, because she always just felt, frail, if you will. And she wasn't sure that, conceiving naturally was an option. Here's the big lesson, you guys. Endometriosis surgery might still be the thing that you need. But the real root cause approach work, where we test both partners, we look at the environment, we look at the immune system, the nervous system, the gut, the vaginal microbiome, all of these components, it can really change the entire trajectory, even when IVF was presented as the only path. So I find that the conventional care will often miss looking at the root cause of endo. Like they literally do not think about why is endometriosis there. They're just thinking about how to override it and what cocktail of drugs to give you. The general functional practitioners your naturopaths that don't specialize in fertility or your functional medicine doctors that don't specialize in fertility, they often miss the deeper intricacies when it comes to the microbiome health. So whether that's your gut microbiome, vaginal microbiome, uterine microbiome, they tend to detox way too hard, and they don't look at the methylation or the mitochondria or the nutrient depletion that can come with that. And they often don't involve the partner because, well, endometriosis is a woman issue, and if he doesn't want to, I'm not going to get him involved. Now, I don't want to be a tyrant and say, like, we only work with couples, but we only work with couples because I'm not interested in just helping you get pregnant. I want you to have a healthy pregnancy, and I want you to have a healthy baby. And in order for us to be able to do that, it takes two people. So we need the partner on board. And this couple is such a perfect example where he was fine and she kept trying to push him into doing stuff, but like he just didn't have enough symptoms to do anything about it. And it wasn't until she was like, listen, this doc requires you to show up. And he shows up and he's like, I'm happy to do whatever. I just, I don't really have any symptoms. And I said, that's totally fine. Do you mind if we just test all the things? And then I'll tell you what we need to focus on. And we tested the gut, we tested the nutrients, we looked at the methylation, and we did a really good blood work. We tested all those things on her, but we did a little bit more because, she had a couple more things going on. And there was so much stuff that came up. When he saw that data, it was really easy for him to follow supplement protocols. It was really easy for him to make the diet and lifestyle changes, because not only did he feel different, but he understood how his involvement was important in her healing journey, and he didn't want to see his wife struggling anymore. One of the things that was their primary symptoms is she was quite moody, and they were fighting a lot, and she would be moody in that second half of the cycle, and she would be nagging him to do things, and he would do it, but he didn't want to do it. So it's like he did it because he loved her, but it did put a strain on the relationship. And one of the first things that improved within the first 1 to 2 months of us working together is her mood drastically changed, and they were no longer fighting. They felt connected. They were going for walks together. They were cuddling all the time. They were making food. They were laughing, and they were so much more joyous within the first couple of months. It's like if I just told Amanda, okay, Amanda, it's endometriosis, I'm just going to treat you, that transition never would have happened. And that transition from being nagging and upset and tension within the couple to oxytocin release and dopamine and just feeling deeply connected. We can't miss out on that. There's so many benefits of that, and they're researched and they're well studied. So this is why I involve the partner, and I think what the general functional doctors typically miss. And when you address all of this together, and we actually look at endometriosis as this full body inflammatory immune system condition, your symptoms will improve and resilience will change, and then your fertility will follow. So I want you to remember that surgery is a tool, but it's not the whole plan. With the right prep and recovery support, it can absolutely change the game and change your fertility journey. But if you have endometriosis and you're doing all the right things and you're still being told that IVF is your only option, it's usually not because you need another surgery or that you're broken and you're not meant to have children. It's because no one has put all of the pieces together for you. And this is exactly what we did with Amanda and what we do every day in our Maximize Your Fertility program. So if you want my team to look at your history and your labs through this holistic fertility lens, go ahead and click the link down below, fill out an application, and then my team will get back to you if we can help. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.